Fault number 9 is Wally Lewis. Wally is one of the greatest players the game has ever seen and dominated the Origin arena in all 31 matches he played. Wally captained Queensland in 30 games, a record. Wally was named man of the match on 8 occasions, also a record. Wally played 34 tests for Australia and was captain of the undefeated 1986 Kangaroo touring side. What does it mean to you to be a FOG, a member of an elite organisation, a unit, amongst so many other great players?
Yeah, well, you don't get to decide if you're going to be a FOG. If you've played for Queensland, the thrill, the honour of representing Queensland in Origin, you become a former Origin great. One of the guys was saying, what do we call a current Origin player? And I said, well, that's the one that we all enjoy while we have the time. But to be able to experience the thrill of donning a maroon jersey and then getting asked about it, and that's where the FOG comes into it. We get to talk about it, the honour that we had running out to represent the people of Queensland that never ever turned on us when we lost a game. They were disappointed, but they were always on our side, and to have the opportunity to get around now and talk about that, and also try and experience a little bit of fundraising and help for the team. Finance is a wonderful promo, but it's also a real backbone of the glories of State of Origin footy, and to have that is a real honour.
Favourite player to play with?
I put it down to 4 players. Every time I'm asked, it's hard not to. Peter Sterling, Brett Kenny, they also come up in the players I played against. Gene Miles and Mel Meninga, 4 of the most wonderful players. If I've got to put it down to one, the amount of times I played alongside Gino, and I used to say he made me look like I was a much better player than I actually was, and Gene actually says that with monotonous regularity, but just 4 very gifted players who, quite honestly, made life very easy for me.
This is a real tough question. Favourite moment on the field?
Well, again, it's one of those ones that it's hard to mark down. If I've got to give it to just one, it was the first time that I got to play for Australia. It was at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and the game hadn't actually started. I looked over and I saw my mum and dad. The enormous things that they did for me to make it on the footy field were quite remarkable. I remember looking over to say a thank you during the national anthem, and my dad was wiping his face away, and Mum said, yeah, your father was crying there. He said, I was not, I was wiping the dust out of my eyes. I got dust down there at the SCG. That was it for me. He used to teach me how to play, teach me how to read a game, teach me what to do, how to think about it, how to be inspired, and he was quite remarkable to have on board.
What about off the field? Is there a memory off the field in the game of rugby league that sticks in your mind at all?
It might sound a little bit strange, but it was when the Brisbane Broncos came into the competition. It created hatred here in Brisbane, quite honestly. There was some love for people that said, yep, we're going to get the chance to have a Brisbane team playing in the Sydney competition. We used to play the old BRL days here on a Saturday and Sunday. It was fantastic, but we all had a dream of playing in the toughest, tightest competition in the world. And for many, that was Sydney. To know that we were playing in that one was quite remarkable. But I've got to say that there were a number of people that came up to me on the street in the days when the Broncos were announced and said, you'll never have my support again. Simply, we're walking away, we'll stick to the club thing. And it was understandable to see why a lot of them were so upset. But really, once we had a national rugby league competition in place, I think everybody agreed that was what we'd wanted for ages, for decades. It sort of spoilt the local clubs like Valleys, Winner Manly and the rest, but we did have a national comp, and that was all of a sudden in effect and made the game so much more exciting.
Is there one game in your extraordinary career that stands out at all?
Game 2, 1989. We were playing against New South Wales in the State of Origin match, and we were gone. We were shot to bits in that game. We had a whole group of blokes came up with injuries. We actually finished the game with 12 men, and it was quite remarkable. And towards the end of the game, I ended up scoring a try in it that I felt pretty comfortable about. And I can remember saying to the players at the end of the game, "These people will probably boo shit out of us." I said, "But turn around and have a look at them, because for the first time ever, we're getting a standing ovation from the crowd." To finish with 12 men and to wrap the game up was quite remarkable. But it was the one game I remember going into the sheds for Queensland, and there used to be wild celebrations took place after it. The guys were too tired. They were buggered. Finishing one short, they were all on the floor. About an hour and 3/4 after the game had finished, they started to get up and move around and sing and dance. But they were too tired. They were wrecked. And for me, that was the ultimate. I'd seen 150% effort from every player in the team.
What about the biggest influence on your career? Is it your father?
Yeah, Dad first, daylight second. Every afternoon he used to teach me what to do in the backyard. I can still remember when I first started throwing spiral passes. I'd seen him when I went to Brisbane State High School, and he said, "What are you throwing a stupid pass like that for?" And I said, "Because it can go further," and I said, "I can get it more accurately." And he looked, and he dropped off over the next couple of weeks, months and years, but it was always about the defence. That was his number one priority. He used to say that was the most important part of the game, to deny the opposition any opportunity. And to me, I used to celebrate with him after a State of Origin win. I'd go around a day or two later to his place and say, "That was great, another win for Queensland, that was terrific." And he said, "Yeah, but you missed 3 tackles." And I used to just sort of smile, shake my head and say, yeah, I did too. And he said, "Well, pick it up next time, try and perfect your game." So I knew I'd sort of done that. But the day that I got to play for Australia, for him, I remember, because I looked over again at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and he was bawling his eyes out. Mum said no, he wasn't. He was, he was one of those ones that didn't cry. He did.
Was he your go-to when times were tough, when you needed someone to talk to about your game?
Yeah, he was, but I found that's where the importance of teammates, special teammates, came in. Gino, Mal in the Origin games, they were certainly the ones that, there were different times where I found that I was sort of struggling a little bit in different parts of my game. So I'd call on the advice of them. I always used to ask Dad. Sometimes it got away from him a little bit on what I was trying to came up with, what sort of answer that I was after. And I felt that asking players that had experienced similar problems was probably the best way to do it. So to go to those players, and I thought it was even more of an indication of just how close the Queensland blokes were. We were there for each other in the toughest of times to make things easy, and that was the difference between success and failure.
Is there one player in the history of the game that you would have watched and never got the opportunity to play with that you'd love to have been able to run out on the field at the same time with?
Johnny Raper. My dad, I was a lock forward in my early days, and every game that we used to come here, he'd say, I hope New South Wales get belted. I hope they lose. He said, but I hope John Raper gives you something that you can put into your game. He used to describe the cover defence that he displayed as good as he'd ever seen. He then, a couple of years later, said that Ron Coote does it. He's a bit quicker than what Johnny was. So defence was the number one priority, but I think it was Raper's brilliance and the effort that he used to put into the games and the role that he played for each and every team. And he said when it went back to club football, that increased. When he was back with St George, that became even more wonderful. So he was a player that I dreamed about being something like when I grew older.
A rival from New South Wales you had the most respect for?
Played against the best players in footy. I'd say, if there was, it might sound a little bit strange in the rival department. When it's a 5'8", it's Brett Kenny first. Again, Daylight second. I don't mean to be disrespectful to the other 5'8", but he was wonderful. He had speed, brilliance, off the mark, way in front of me, and I used to try and intentionally bring a couple of defenders closer into me so that Brett didn't have too many opportunities. But he was as good as they came. And again, when it came to a time where the preference had to be shown, he was a guy that had plenty of selections. But I've got to say, if I had one great thrill, it was to be able to use an opponent as an inspiration for an Origin match, and every time I ran onto the field against Brett, I knew that I had to be 101% prepared. Otherwise, he was going to make a fool of me. He did it a few times.
What about some advice for young boys and girls who are making their way and looking to follow in your footsteps?
Set yourself a goal, make it an achievable one. Every time that you do manage to achieve that goal, set yourself another one. Be hungry, want to be successful. I used to hear the old saying, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Well, that's true to a certain extent, but I used to hate losing. Playing the game has to be an inspiration for all, and to see girls playing it now, I can remember being asked that question the first time, do you agree with the girls playing? And after watching them play, I said it's easy to make a decision. You can say yes or no, but you're not going to know the answer until you see the standard of play that they display, and so far that's been fantastic. It really has quite been remarkable. And it's a little bit ironic that a bloke that I used to play with a long time ago in the Queensland primary schools team, Larry Brigginshaw, and a daughter who went on to be the #1 player in women's rugby league. So it was quite remarkable. To see the standard that the girls are displaying week in, week out, it's extremely impressive.
And to wrap up, what interests away from footy? Because footy would have engulfed your life for so many years. How do you relax? What are you up to now?
Certainly sitting around, playing a bit of golf. Not any better than I ever was when I first started playing the game. I am quite proud of the input that I have now in some charities that I do some work for. Epilepsy Queensland being one of them, and the Hear and Say Centre for Deaf Children. I've got a beautiful daughter, Jamie Lee, who's taken to the game of rugby league and got to enjoy some games. I told her I was ashamed of her when she started playing for East. She was playing for Valleys, my former club, and I loved the time that she had there. But I think when you go into the parenthood role, that's something else. That is the greatest time of your life. And now I'm in the granddad department, looking at the thrill that they get. They know nothing about my footy. I don't want them to really sort of chase that, but to have the chance to be able to play with them and experience the same thrills that every other grandfather does, surely is the greatest thrill of all for me.
And just on that, Jamie Lee's diagnosis came at a time, when you were still playing and at the peak of your powers. It had a really big impact on you personally in your career, didn't it? Yeah,
it did. I've got to say, I'll never forget that time. And Mother and I, Jackie and I, were in basically before the final game in '91. And she'd been experiencing some hearing difficulties, just didn't seem to be responding to us all that quickly. And it came to the stage where we were given the information. The doctor said she's profoundly deaf, and Jackie basically asked out of hope, what do you mean profoundly? Hoping that they were going to say, oh, there'll be some chance that she will be able to hear. And the doctor said, I'm sorry, but profoundly deaf. She won't hear. She's deaf for life. Jackie collapsed to the floor. And I asked a few questions. To be honest, I can't remember what they were. I don't think I ever would. And went back to the Queensland State of Origin camp. I came here, to Suncorp Stadium, and we were to be going through our final training session. So I'd missed the final training session, and walked on, and the cameras started to come. Why'd Wally miss the session? And the session was over, and I walked up to our manager, Tosser Turner, and said, "That's it, Toss. I'm finished." And he said, "Mate, we'll talk about it." And the next day came around. We came to the stadium at Suncorp, or Lang Park as it was in those days. And I said, "This is my last game." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a little girl to look after now." And he said, "Good. If you didn't come up with that decision, I would have told you." And went onto the field, got to be able to retire a very happy man, and watch a gorgeous little girl go on with life and experience some difficulties through hearing impairment, to which I've become, a worker at the Hear and Say Centre for Deaf Children, and enjoyed every bit of it. So that probably wasn't the way that I was intending to retire, but I think we all have different issues in our life that we're forced to deal with, and that was one that's gone on.
Well, Wally Lewis, welcome to this edition of Know Your FOGS. Are you nervous?
Extremely.
Do you know your FOGS?
Well, we're about to find out.
Well, I'm going to ask you a very, very simple one to start. 10 questions, right? We're going to keep a record, this series, to see who is the most knowledgeable FOG, right? And we'll see how we go. 10 questions, no time limit, so you can take your time. Question number 1. Who is FOG number 1?
Arthur Beetson.
Well done. You're on your way. 1 from 1. Question number 2. Who's played the most State of Origin games for Queensland?
Cameron Smith.
Well done. 2 from 2. He's played 42. Now, this is a 50-50. Well, you've got a chance here. Who played more games for Queensland? Darius Boyd or Bob Lindner?
Darius Boyd.
Well done. He played 28. The great Bob Lindner played 25. Still a pretty good haul there for both of them. 3 from 3. Do you feel a little bit more relaxed now?
I feel even more nervous.
Question number 4. Who was the first player after Wally Lewis to captain Queensland in all matches in a series?
To captain.
Who followed you as captain of Queensland would be another way of answering that, asking that question.
Mal Meninga.
Well done. You had to think about it though, didn't you? 1992, of course. You played your last game in 91. So Mel, 4 from 4. Now it gets a little bit tougher. All right. Question number 5. Alphabetically, who comes first in a list of FOGs? Now, I've given others clues, so I'll give you a clue as well. His surname starts with the letter A.
Arthur Beetson.
No, surname.
Oh, surname.
Surname starts with the letter A, so alphabetically.
In the FOGs.
Yes. If you were to list every FOG alphabetically, who would be at top of that list? Obviously starts with A, and I'll give you another one. He only played 1 game, Wal. And he's still playing. Although he's been ruled out when we're recording this for the year with I think he did his ACL training. No idea?
No.
You're not the only one. Corey Allen, who did his knee in training for the Dragons. So Corey Allen comes first. ALLAN, just above Gavin Allen. Who's ALLEN. So there you go. Now here's an interesting one. Who was the first Queenslander to win the Wally Lewis medal?
First Queenslander.
Yep. And that's for when we're talking about the player of the series, not the Queensland, when it was presented as a Queen. Who the first Queenslander player of the series receives the Wally Lewis medal? Who was the first one Queensland you presented it to?
Darren Lockyer.
Well done. Well done. You've only got one wrong, so you're 5 from 6. Yep. Question number 7. Who has scored the most Origin points for Queensland without kicking a goal? So somebody who scored a lot of tries.
Thinking it's a winger.
Move in a bit. Although, might have played there as well.
Without kicking goal.
Without kicking a goal. He has 72 points for Queensland without kicking a goal.
Greg Inglis.
Well done. Well done. 6 from 7. You're going better than you thought, didn't you? Aren't you? Question number 8. Of the following Queensland players, who never won a Man of the Match award? Matt Singh, Willie Kahn, Dale Shearer, or Michael Hancock? Who never won a Man of the Match? Matty Singh, Willie Kahn, Dale Shearer, or Michael Hancock?
Michael Hancock.
Well done. Mick Hancock never won.
Robbed. You were robbed.
7 out of 8, mate. 7 out of 8. Now, this might get you. Question number 9. What does the A stand for in FOG number 204, AJ Brimson?
AJ Brimson.
What's the A stand for?
I'm gone on that one. AJ Brimson.
There aren't many names that start with.
Anthony?
No. Alexander.
So
there you go. You've got 7 from 9, which is still pretty good. And question number 10. Last one. Who was the only, I need to explain this to you, the only player to have captained Queensland in one State of Origin match, but never then coached Queensland? So, ironically, there's a few players that have captained Queensland once. They've then gone on to coach Queensland. But there's one player who captained Queensland once that never coached Queensland.
No, I've lost that one.
Shane Webke. Webby. So there you go.
That's a goodie, and always did a wonderful job for Queensland.
I wonder whether Webby, when I ask him, whether he'll get that. But 7 out of 10, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'll take that.
There you go.
Yep.
Wally Lewis, thanks for playing Know Your FOG.
My pleasure.